So now let's talk about violence trends in our communities. And it really relates across the board to different situations going on. So we're going to talk about it from a general perspective. I do use the Bureau of Justice statistics for my statistics that we'll certainly talk about today here. So they gather police reports from all across the nation, and that's where we get this statistical information from. So it does take them quite a while, typically a year and a half, to put all that data together, so from a given time period. So in case you ever look at those things yourself. So we look at workplace homicide by type. First slide here, majority of the time, it doesn't matter the year, majority of the incidents are shooting incidents. So they're firearms based when we talk about workplace homicide. Right around 80%, 79%, 80%, 82%, usually right in that area. But the thing that I want to point out to you is that there's lots of other things that cause this workplace homicide: kicking, hitting, stabbing, beatings, those kind of things. And one of the things I'm beginning to look at here is some of the little stuff. I want to call some of those things to your attention, certainly within this chapter in this next few minutes. We look at trends, current trends in community violence. Homicide's one of the top 3 causes of occupational injury deaths. And at the time of this recording, it's the #1 cause of death for women in the workplace. We also look at workplace violent incidents. A majority of these incidents are simple assaults. If we're just looking at the incidents, a majority are simple assaults that occur in the workplace. We look at who commits these offenses. Statistically, it's hands down. It's lone offenders, the male lone offenders. 80% of offenses are committed by lone offenders. Up in the 90 percentile are males. And so the lone male, if he's concerning you, he's out in the parking lot walking around, or he's been coming into the lobby, the lone male, if he's concerning you, you should be concerned. Statistically, he is the problem. So when you're trying to think about, should I call somebody? Should I call 911? Should I call my boss? Whatever that looks like, or a teammate. Yeah, statistically, the lone male is the problem. Now, I want to make sure and mention it. Don't rule out the females. They are violent at times as well. I mentioned the FBI study earlier, 160 incidents that they studied. Of those 160 incidents, 6 of those violent active shooters were females. 6 out of the 160 were females. Another one that I just look at as well as, you might remember the phrase going postal, depending on your age. That phrase going postal, because some postal employees became violent. I believe that was between 1978, about 1985. Several postal employees became violent at work during those years and harmed people, killed people. I want to remind us, or inform you if you're not aware, the first one in 1978 to start that process of those years was a female postal employee. So majority of the time we're looking at males, but we don't want to rule out the female if she is making you uncomfortable in a process or concerning you as well. You want to pay attention to them as well. Strangers committed the greatest proportion of non-fatal workplace violence incidents. And I really want to focus on this for a minute because of that word strangers. Bureau of Justice Statistics looks at strangers. They consider them not to be somebody you work with, live with, that you're related to, those kind of things. But I want to point out it also includes people that you're becoming more familiar with. There's a good chance right now you're thinking of somebody that concerns you at work right now, whether they've come to city council meetings, county commissioner meetings, or they've been coming into your lobby and they've been getting more and more upset. They're upset with regulatory issues or with your company, corporation, or your business, or they're walking around out front. Those folks are lumped into strangers, but I want to point out to this situation that you're becoming familiar with this person through their actions. And so I want to make sure that we don't look at strangers in these categories as complete strangers. You may not know their name or you may not know them well, but sometimes these folks that you should be concerned about and are concerned about, you're becoming familiar with them because they're becoming more and more of a problem, or they're raising themselves to your attention level more and more. So we want to watch those people. So that's important. They're strangers, considered strangers, but we still also want to be keeping an eye on them when they're making you uncomfortable or when you're concerned about them. So, and we'll talk about that. 1 in 5 victims of workplace homicide, government employee. Certainly government employees tend to be, a negative situation. Most folks have a negative perspective of government and government employees, and sometimes they're not treated well, or sometimes they feel like they're unfairly treated. So not my perspective, but theirs at times if we look at these incidents. So, but there's also corporations, businesses too, that get in a negative light with people as well. So any of us that are concerned, especially when we start having a problem with a certain person, you should be concerned about those folks statistically. The rate of workplace violence, certainly against government employees, higher. But any of us, we look at, just before the recording of this, just a few weeks ago, we had a person who entered a manufacturing company, a private corporation, entered that workplace because he had issues with some of the workers in previous months, and then he got fired, and he returned to that place and became violent with those people that he had disagreements with. So it's not always government. Government's perceived as negative, but it can happen to us anywhere, any of our workplaces, if there's problems there. So what you and I are going to focus on is, what are the flags? What kind of things do we watch out for to try to help us prevent issues, prepare for those, or to get ourselves removed if we know something's getting ready to happen?